Hello, and welcome back to part 2. Today we're going to kind of get into a little bit of PHP. First, I want to talk about the difference between static and dynamic web design, client side versus server side, like the pros and cons, a brief history of PHP, the PHP tag itself, variable declarations, variable data types, and echo. I'm going to try to fit this all into one segment. If not, I'll break it up into two. So let's talk about static versus dynamic web design. So what is static web design? Or excuse me, a static web page itself. Well, what happens is a designer writes code which is in XHTML. Then this is displayed onto a page. With dynamic, designer writes page contents based on user input, form completion, stuff like that. It also is based on database interaction. Also, with dynamic web page design, it's created by embedded scripts, which a page typically features some static XHTML and CSS, but the output is derived from the script execution itself. So programmers must be pretty competent in XHTML and CSS coding, as a program output features correct tags, syntax, and stuff like that. Now, these pages created must be fully XHTML compliant and use the correct CSS formatting so everything is rendered out correctly. Next, we're going to go down to client side versus server side. So client side itself, well, has very little processing on the server, if any at all. It's fast server response, but light processing load itself. Those are some pros. Some cons would be limited data handling and processing capabilities, and is limited in sophistication. Also, there are some security issues. A user can see things being changed by the script embedded in the source. Now, for server side itself, some pros can connect to various data sources and customize replies to the client. You can it's easy to make large-scale projects. There's no need to create hundreds of static pages. Instead, you can make a smaller site with a bunch of dynamic pages itself. This is one con that I could think of, and I'm sure there's probably others. Well, the one I can think of, if you don't code it correctly, you can introduce security flaws, which would make your site or script be acceptable to attacks from the outside. Since we covered the first two items, let's go ahead and go into brief history. Now, with brief history, PHP. Well, let's talk about what PHP stands for. PHP stands for PHP Hypertext Preprocessor, and what it is, it's an open source scripting language that is used on the server side for web programming and developing. Now, PHP code is not visible to the user, so when you go to a web page, you can right-click, view source, but you wouldn't be able to see the PHP stuff. This was introduced, I believe, 94, 95, somewhere around there. And it's pretty much based off of Perl itself. At one time, it was called personal homepage tools. It's something like that. I'm sorry about that one. Let's go on down to PHP tags. So, PHP tags. It's basically like I showed you in the last video, where you have your less than symbol, question mark, PHP, right than symbol. Let's go ahead and let's pull one up real quick, or just type it out real quick so we know what we're talking about. Like I said, you got the less than symbol, question mark, PHP, question mark, and then the greater than symbol. So in between these two tags right here, all your PHP is going to be created in here. So let's go ahead and type in a simple one that you can use either with your WAMP server, or if you already have a server that's available to you, you can see what PHP Apache versions are being run, what other extensions might be on there as well. So I'm going to save this as PHP info dot PHP. We'll save that. Go to our browser, change this, PHP info, hit enter. And here now I pull everything, all the information off of the PHP server itself. Just like in the first one, first time I showed you guys this through WAMP itself. Here we wrote a fast little script that shows us all the version of PHP, version of Apache's environments, and a whole bunch of other useful information that we might divulge into later on. So let's go back to Notepad++, and let's go to variable declarations. I know I'm kind of going through this pretty quick, but I want to try to get all this kind of done and over with so we can go ahead and start doing stuff with it. So with variable declarations, well, every variable has to start with a dollar symbol. So for this one, I could actually put in here a dollar symbol and name. So now it's being declared as a variable itself. Now I can make this name equal something, say my name. Okay, so now if I were to use that variable within this program at all, it will show you my name. So with your variables, they are case sensitive when you refer to them, so you can't say name then try to echo name. You'll actually would produce an error doing it that way. But for functions themselves, it's not case sensitive. And a kind of an interesting thing, but a weird thing in PHP is that you can have a variable name and a function name be the same thing. Excuse me. Where other programming languages really frown upon that. I don't recommend doing it. You can if you want, but you're at your own risk. You can get easily confused in what's going on or what you're calling. So the next thing on the list is variable declarations. Variable data types. Kind of came up with a little list of variable types. You have, well, I'm gonna say there's three main categories, but within those categories you have other types within those. But you have numbers. Okay, so within numbers there is integers. You also have doubles. Okay, and then you have strings, which I showed you in the last video, but right here would be an example of a string where you have a double quote at the beginning and a double quote at the end. Then you have arrays, and booleans. And a boolean is either true or false. So you could say if something is not true, go ahead and do this, but if something is true, do something else. And we'll get into doing more logic type stuff in other videos.